we see everybody complaining about all these different things. And so today's episode is essentially, what are you going to do to help fix this? Somebody has to get the ball rolling. Everything that bothers you, start writing it down and then figure out how can you proactively give them guidance on this.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenley and welcome back to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we've got a great Tactical Tuesday ahead of us, but before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about the show. As you know, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space. Other days we cover trending topics, items that recruiters are talking about or will be very soon, and what those mean for them. Every Tuesday like today, come by for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we're going to go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. Some days we open it up for Q&A. Listeners can drop in questions that they'd like to hear us take on, so send those to us at podcast@loxo.co. And occasionally you'll get a mic drop episode from Matt where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. All right, today's Tactical Tuesday. It's the first new Tactical Tuesday of the year. So you know what that means. New year, new goals, fresh slate. 2023 is behind us. But here's the kicker. In order for this to realize, you have to initiate and be that change that you want to see. And that's exactly what Vivien has prepared to cover today. So couldn't be more excited for this conversation as she's going to give you actionable thoughts and advice on how you can be that change that you want to see with some common recruiting frustrations that you may or may not encounter quite regularly. So on that note, Vivien, welcome back.
Thanks for having me. New year, new me. Just kidding.
God. And that's the end of the episode. Everyone, thank you for listening.
Yeah, but on a more kind of realistic note, there's so many people that keep complaining on LinkedIn. I mean, anytime that I log onto LinkedIn, somebody's posting about their experience with a recruiter as a candidate, or you have conversations with hiring managers and they're like, I've worked with recruiters and this is my biggest pet peeve. This is why I don't want to work with them. And these kind of go into the different kind of objections that recruiters that also do business development kind of run into, where they have to gain trust after another recruiter has messed up. Same thing with candidates. There's so many posts that I see all the time talking about, I've applied to 500 different jobs and I've only heard back from 5. That's crazy. That it should not be like this. And so we see everybody complaining about all these different things. And a lot of times it's the same thing that everybody's essentially complaining about. And so today's episode is essentially, what are you going to do to help fix this? Somebody has to get the ball rolling. And depending on what kind of recruiter you are, whether you're in a large agency where there's a lot of rules and processes in place, there are little things that you can still do that are within your realm of control. And there's others who are completely independent recruiters and they actually can choose whatever they want to do. And so they have a lot more freedom of options and choices of what they're actually going to do. So to start with, I wanted to jump in and kind of start talking about hiring managers and how to deal with them. Whenever you as a recruiter have pet peeves when it comes to hiring managers, start writing down all the different things that are bothering you. So for example, if you send over a candidate, you submit them, you send a CV, presentation, the whole 9 yards, and the feedback that you're getting is, I'm just going to pass on them. That's not really helpful feedback. That doesn't help you refine your search. But in the eyes of the hiring manager, for them, it makes sense why this isn't the right fit. So this is where, as a recruiter, you have to figure out, how can I get the feedback that I need from the hiring manager? Because you're asking for something that you need. So you also have to think about, how can I incentivize and make this as easy as possible on the hiring manager to get what I need? So this is where, anytime that you have any kind of pet peeve with a hiring manager, figure out a plan so that you can onboard them from the start properly. So when it comes to, for example, getting feedback that can actually help you with a search and find the right candidates, during the intake call that you're having, start asking, okay, what are the top 3 things that you absolutely need to see? And what are the nice to haves? And that way, when you have these 3 things and they say, I don't know, this is not a fit, not interested, I'm going to pass on this one, you can then ask, hey, these are the 3 things, I am seeing them. Please let me know what I'm missing here. That way you can close that communication gap and source a little bit better and find better candidates. And so when you're starting to see all of these issues, see how you can address them by optimizing your process. So in some cases, you can even create a little Google form that you ask them to fill out. or if they prefer to not even give you any kind of feedback after you submit someone and they just want to talk to you and go through every single candidate that is currently in play during like a weekly 1 hour Zoom meeting or something like that. Have all of these things in play, but figure out how can I get what I need from the hiring manager, but how can I also tell them this is what I need and incentivize to actually get this back? And so essentially it comes down to everything that bothers you, start writing it down and then figure out how can you proactively give them guidance on this, because the reason why hiring managers aren't giving you the constructive feedback that you're looking for is because they may not realize what exactly would be constructive feedback. So they just give you, I'm giving you feedback, I'm going to pass on this one, and that's it. So if you want something a little bit more specific, guide them a little bit more and give them a little bit more structure.
I like that. And even translating over to like the business, marketing, sales side, it's the same thing when, if I'm working with sales, hey, we just gave you 10 opportunities. You marked 9 of them closed, lost. Why did we lose them? If you don't have that feedback loop, well, we were too expensive. They went with a competitor. They needed these features. It's the same exact concept. So being able to aggregate that data, like you said, that's going to help you fine tune, because that's what makes you more effective at the end of the day. And you work with them properly. It's like, hey, I'll help you win more deals. I'm going to help you get more clients, get them or more candidates, or do it quicker to make those hires. So yeah, that's such an important and really an easy thing if you just get that process in place, onboard them correctly, and learn from that.
Yeah. And something that is so simple but so easy to do is you can say, hey, this is what I need from you. This is the kind of things that I need from you. What can I do? How can I help you give these things to me? That's sometimes all you need to ask. Like you could just really say bare bones, I don't know how else to ask this, but I want this to be an amazing partnership. This is what I need from you. What can I do to help you give this to me? Do you prefer to give me this feedback over text? Do you want me to send you a Google form and remind you of it? Like, how can we make this work? How can I make this as easy as possible for you while I am also getting what I need to actually make your life easier? And literally just framing it as simple as that sometimes will be enough to get them to have that click, to then be able to be like, this person really wants to help me. This is what they actually need. But I forget to get feedback after interviews. Why don't we just set up a reoccurring appointment or something like that where they can like give me these things, or like a Google form? That's great. Whatever it is, because everybody is so different that sometimes just asking, how can I help you give me what I need? That's sometimes all it takes.
Yeah, so simple. All right. I know there's no shortage of frustrations that people have with hiring managers. So what's one other that you might think about that you can effectively be the change towards?
Yeah. So, for example, another one is it takes way too long to actually hear back from the hiring manager. So, this is where you can say, listen, um, I totally understand that you're busy. That's why I'm here to help. But for me to actually help you effectively, I need to get some kind of feedback. How can we make this easy on you while also getting timely feedback? And this is where you can suggest, like, if you want, I can only submit candidates to you during our weekly call. We have a weekly pre agreed upon Zoom hour meeting thing that we see each other every single week. I'm not going to send you any candidates. I'm just going to present them to you on the Zoom call, and you're going to give me feedback right on the spot. Really figure out what works best for the hiring manager, because ultimately what works best for the hiring manager is going to work best for you as well. And this is where, as you're starting to work with different clients, it might make sense to have like a little running doc or notepad that kind of documents the different preferences of each hiring manager. And the one thing that will happen when you do this is those hiring managers are absolutely going to love working with you. They're going to start recommending you because you're making their life easier while also getting everything that you need from them. Those are the type of partnerships that are really going to flourish. And sometimes these happen naturally because you have similar communication styles and preferences. But sometimes you don't have these similarities where it doesn't kind of click naturally and it's not that natural partnership. Ask these questions and you'll be able to kind of create that partnership there. And those are going to be super fruitful.
Yeah. So worth it. Absolutely worth that time investment. All right, so that's hiring managers. Candidates. That's a different end of the spectrum in how you can work better with them. So let's start with, just the general candidate pool. What types of scenarios are you coming up against there?
Sometimes a lot of times it's going to be incomplete profiles. And I am guilty of this myself. If you would go on my LinkedIn profile, I have no description of what my responsibilities are at each role. I barely have filled out any of my skills. And it's not that there's nothing to put there. There's obviously quite a bit that I can add there. It's just, I don't want to. And most candidates won't want to do it
Hmm.
either. And if they're looking for jobs, they have an old resume floating around that they need to update. But if they need to send one in right away, they're just going to send the incomplete one. And this is something really annoying. But at the same time, when I started explaining to candidates how recruiters even source, so for example, on LinkedIn Recruiter, I would start specifying the skills in the skill section. Problem is, not everybody fills out all of the skills that they have that I am particularly looking for as a recruiter. And this is where keyword searches in the Boolean that search the whole profile were a little bit more fruitful. But this is where kind of explaining as a recruiter, when I am looking for candidates and the hiring manager gives me these specific skills, I'm going to type them into the skills section, into the skills filter, whether that's on Indeed, on ZipRecruiter, on LinkedIn, and Loxo. I'm going to add this in here. And whoever pops up, that is who I'm going to reach out to. So the people with the most complete profiles are the ones that end up getting reached out to the most by recruiters, and those who have
Hmm.
incomplete profiles, nobody reaches out to them because there's no information there, so recruiters don't really know what's going on with them. And so this is where, as a recruiter, you can start a little like LinkedIn series where you're essentially posting helpful tidbits about how recruiters even look for candidates, because until you are a recruiter, you have no idea how recruiters even find you. And this is where you can kind of help shed a little bit of light on why different sections of the LinkedIn profile are actually really helpful for you as recruiters, so that those who are actively looking for jobs can actually position themselves a little bit better for recruiters to actually find them.
I like that. But yeah, and that's where I don't know. I don't want to be devil's advocate here, but for so many recruiters, you're passively recruiting, right? So why are some like to your point, I don't want to fill that out. I don't care. Like that's your job to find me, not my job to attract you. So it's the instilling the long-term mindset. Well, you're gonna be in this job forever. Like and that could be the beginning of your post. Like you might not be looking now, but what's your plan 3, 5, 10 years from now? Where do you want to be? Because if you want to get ahead of that, that's one way where you can help people help you to position yourself that way.
Yeah. And I agree with you on being the devil's advocate. I'm a firm believer in, as a recruiter, it's your job to figure out how candidates think. And the reality is that most of the time candidates don't know why they should be filling out the skills section. I had no idea. I always skipped that until I became a
Hmm.
recruiter and I was using that. And so sometimes it's just people don't know. And so shedding a little bit of light of how recruiters even work can potentially incentivize people, especially the ones that are actively looking or are open to new opportunities regardless of what's going on with their job. This is where you can shed light as to why are these specific sections so important. And that way, even if just one person takes you up on it, that's already one positive change in the right direction. And that will start snowballing, because that one person is going to fill out their skill section. A recruiter is going to reach out to them about their dream job. And that person's going to be like, listen, I filled out my skill section and that got me my dream job. And she's going to tell all of her friends, and everybody's going to do it too. And the world will slowly start becoming better for recruiters.
Exactly. And Vivien told me to do it. So go look at Vivien's profile because she posts all about this. All right. So that's general candidates. What about candidates as you're working through the search process itself?
Yeah, so this is where a couple of things can happen. Candidates can ghost you. A lot of times it's because they just don't want to tell you that something came up and they're just withdrawing from it. And so, as you're talking to them, have that screening call initially and you have a good feeling about them, you want to move forward with them, you want to submit them, let them know, listen, I know that the search process and switching jobs is nerve wracking. I totally understand that. If any doubts come up, if you have any questions, if you're researching something, you come up against like a weird company review or something like that, please reach out to me, give me a chance to explain. I won't hold it against you. If you change your mind and you want to withdraw, just let me know. I won't like try and convince you otherwise. I just want to be in the know. And just really letting them know that you really are an advocate for them, that can potentially help build a little bit more trust, where they will reach out to you if anything comes up, if they have any questions, if they have any doubts, so that you can actually help address them. But then also when they say, you know what, I've thought about this. Currently, that's really not the right move for me career wise. I thank you so much for your time. Honor that and say, thank you so much for letting me know. Thank you for talking to me and even considering this job, and just really being polite and honoring that they want to withdraw without then trying to like resell them and be like, no, but you're such a great fit. This would be so good for you or whatever. That's the reason why candidates that end up ghosting people, because they don't want to have these conversations. And so it comes down to, how can you incentivize people around you to give you what you want, what's also in their best interest. So you want to find that middle ground, and you want to make it as easy as possible for people to give you exactly what you need. And this is where integrity comes down, and making yourself available if they have questions or doubts to really talk to them about this. But then also when they say I'm withdrawing, to really just honor that and say, you know what, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. If you ever are back in the job market, please let me know. I'd be happy to work with you again. And then just be a person of your word.
Sounds easy. Usually is easy. You just have to stick to it. So, all right, we've gone through these frustrations and we are committed to being better people, making positive change, really sticking to it this year. So, what are some quick tips on both candidate side, hiring manager side? Like, what are some things that we can do as recruiters to help lead this positive change?
Be the change you want to see in the world. Have integrity. So essentially, with candidates, whenever they reach out to you and really have gone a little bit more of an extra step above, like they have applied to a job and then they DM you on LinkedIn or send you an email, but they're just really not a good fit, give them that feedback. Let them know, hey, I reviewed your resume. I want to let you know that like somebody has reviewed it, and just giving them that feedback because, and we covered this in a previous episode, sometimes ambiguity and not having answers is actually way worse than getting critical feedback. And this is, as recruiters, we experience this all the time when we're dealing with hiring managers and they're just not giving us any feedback, or the feedback is absolutely horrendous. It's like, I'm just going to pass on this one. It's like, come on, give me more. And so this is where you want to provide that feedback. And even if somebody is not a good fit, come up with a really good template and say, you know what, it's, I don't see where your experience particularly matches up with this. I understand that maybe you have this experience and I'm just not seeing it in your resume. If I made a mistake, please let me know. Or if they kind of have it and they're close, but something tiny little bit is missing, let them know so that people know it's not them personally. Because when candidates are looking and actively applying to hundreds of jobs and they just never hear back, they start to take it personally when it really isn't personal. Most likely it's something on their resume. And it just takes that one recruiter that says, I see that you applied. I just don't quite understand why, like where this is coming from. Like these are the skills. I don't quite see them on your resume. And sometimes this is all it takes for a candidate to realize, oh, maybe I didn't make this clear on my resume. Like to me, it makes sense because I did this. I read the job description. This is exactly what I did in my previous role. Something on my resume is not quite communicating that. So this is where they can actually go back and change. And that way, hopefully down the line, when enough recruiters do this on a consistent basis, candidates will spend a little bit more time curating their resumes so that you get a better quality applicant that will actually help you with your job postings.
Makes too much sense. What
Let's see. You also want to be human. Like you don't want to just treat it as like a number. Like throughout the
others?
process, humanize it. Like think about the times that you had to go through the search process as a candidate when you were looking for jobs. It's pretty nerve-wracking. You're
Yeah.
going through change, you're taking a risk, and especially lately the job market has been so wonky where some companies seemingly do well and then there's layoffs. And all of these things are so unexpected. You don't always see them coming, and people have this fear of last in, first one out. And so you want to make this as human as possible. As recruiters, you have to hit a certain amount of numbers to be able to get enough people submitted, interviewed, and placed. We talked about this. But at the same time, it's okay to be human and kind of have more human interactions with people and say, I know this is totally nerve wracking. If you have questions or concerns, let me know. I'm happy to walk you through this. I'm happy to talk to you about this. I know this can be really risky and like nerve wracking, especially if this is like a big career jump or it's their dream job that they kind of put on a pedestal. That makes it a little bit more nerve wracking, and just kind of being there as almost like a coach or like consultant or something like that, that can be super helpful, and just being human. And then also whenever you're working with candidates, just say, hey, I know maybe this didn't work out, or this was a successful placement. Is there anything as a recruiter that I could have done better? Because that way you can also tailor your process a little bit to candidates. And when they say, you know what, I wish I would have gotten feedback or updates, even if the update was, I don't have an update yet. I don't know what's going on. Sometimes just hearing that feedback from candidates to see what would ease their anxiety, because again, when you don't give them feedback, there's ambiguity, anxiety starts going up, they start overthinking, and in the absence of information, people make information up, and suddenly they're coming up with the craziest scenarios. And so sometimes the update can be, I have no update, and that's super helpful. So ask for feedback to see what you can do better as a recruiter as well.
Here's a wild thought. So if you have an ATS that has automation, subtle plug for Loxo. You have people that are like in the interviewing stage. What if you can have custom stages. It's like interviewed waiting, screening waiting or something. And then you could set a rule where it's like, hey, if they haven't been moved in 3 days and no one's been this, like, have an automation. It's like, hey, just a heads up, still in process. Like, you don't have to physically do that. But again, it's communicating, it's getting that message out there, but it's using technology to your advantage. So think about ways that maybe they might not exist today, but you can build some of those yourself.
Oh, definitely. Loxo can make this so easy and beautiful. It can automate it. You can give it a human touch and automate the human touch a little bit more and give that communication piece. And game changer.
We'll start doing it. All right. And let's wrap with let's pick one recommendation for working with hiring managers. Like, what's something that you can do?
Customize it to the hiring manager. Every hiring manager has different preferences. Figure out what those preferences are and then work within that realm. There's going to be hiring managers that don't care about a write-up. They just want to see the resume. Just send them the resume. Why waste time coming up with a whole write-up when they said from the get-go, I don't care about it. Maybe they say, you know what, don't send me any resumes. Just walk me through the candidates that you have talked to during our weekly meetup and call it a day. I have one client that really did not care to see resumes or write-ups. That particular hiring manager just wanted me to talk about the candidates and what I thought was, in terms of their experience, why I thought they would be a really great fit based on my understanding. And me walking them through like this also gave the hiring manager a good sense for whether I understood the role and what kind of was missing. And this is where they were able to say, you know what, I see why you like this person, but the job is a little bit more there, which is why I don't think they would be good for this job. You get immediate feedback from them. And so just tailoring it specifically to whatever the hiring manager needs, that will also get you exactly what you need. And that will make the partnership so good.
Yeah. Just don't force it. Figure out the best way to communicate, work together. And it really is as simple as that. So I love it. All right. So we're all going to be the change we want to see. It's going to be a good year as we get started. So as always, thank you for joining. This is the first of 52 great Tactical Tuesdays coming ahead this year. So appreciate you joining and sharing this knowledge as you always do. So hopefully recruiters start incorporating this in their day-to-day beginning this year. And now for the fun show notes wrap up. So Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. You can find the show notes in the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform. It's also on our website, loxo.co/podcasts. Full video episodes are available on YouTube. And if you have questions, send them over to us, podcast@loxo.co. So, all right, everyone, that's the show. First year Tactical Tuesday has officially finished. Thank you, Vivien. Until next time.
Bye, everyone.